All right, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start with some introductions. My name is Kevin Fan. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer for Kids Are Scientists 2. I joined the organization when I was a junior in high school. So I have been with the organization for 4.5 years. As the Chief Strategy Officer, I advise the CEO and plan out the strategic future of our actions. Now, today we're going to be talking about creating a volunteer base. And since volunteers are the most important part of our organization, I think this is a really good lesson for all of us. Now, when we're looking for volunteers, we want a few quality traits. One is punctuality and professionalism. They represent our organization on the front lines, so we have to make sure that they're doing a good job at it. We want them to show up early to every single meeting. If you show up late, it leaves a really bad impression. They have to be really patient. I have seen volunteers get mad with kids. Some of them have gotten violent. Thankfully, not in our organization, not in KAST, but in other organizations, I've seen volunteers get violent, start cursing. So you really want to screen out those people, make sure they're not going into our elementary schools. Volunteers should be committed. We need to make sure that if they sign up for a task, they will finish that task. If they sign up for an event, they will show up to the event. Otherwise, it's a real pain to have to reschedule. They have to find someone else to fill their place. It just creates a lot more work for the branch leader and for the organization as a whole. We also want leadership in the volunteers. Sometimes you won't be able to go into the branches to lead them personally. Sometimes if you're running 2 or 3 branches at once, like I was when I started my my Northwest branch, I had to run 3 branches at the exact same time. I could only show up to one of them. So I needed some of the volunteers to take leadership, take up the reins for the other 2 branches. And it's good to breed leadership in early. And it's really one of the most important traits. Now, there's a few ways to find volunteers. Some of them are better than others. We could use the school TV/morning announcements, and then we could post flyers or posters on the walls and the hallways. We could email listservs of national organizations like National Science National Honor Society or Mu Alpha Theta, the Math Honor Society, or just National Honor Society. We could recruit volunteers, handpick them one by one. We could use word of mouth, and we could set up a booth at freshman orientation. And I'll go through the pros and cons of each one of these. Now, if you're going to be using the school TV or broadcasting message to recruit volunteers on the morning announcements, this will get your message out. Definitely. Every student in the school will be listening, will hear the morning announcements. And you could reach people that you typically won't be able to reach. The problem is, depending on your school, I know at my school definitely, we didn't really listen to the announcements that much. I did, but I couldn't say that for everybody else in the school. And I have posted messages on morning announcements. I haven't gotten a single response from them. I still think this is a good way to get your word out. The mere exposure effect in marketing says that even if they don't register in their minds, as long as they've heard it for once, or they've heard it and seen it a couple times, that alone is it enough to make it subconsciously more appealing when you actually go out to reach out to them? Going on school TV or broadcasting a message on the morning announcements is also a really great way to practice public speaking, practice your leadership skills. Another way to recruit volunteers within schools is to post flyers or posters on the hallways. Now, you have to make sure that the administrator approves of these posters first. I remember, I think I almost posted a couple of flyers in my high school, and then my advisor reminded me you have to make sure the administrator approves, because otherwise you could get in a lot of trouble. Advantages are the same as with the morning announcements. You can reach a lot more people that you typically won't see. However, sometimes people just don't look at what you post. Now, emailing listservs of honor societies is a really good way to recruit volunteers. These honor societies oftentimes have students that are very motivated and very responsible. And if you can give them a leadership opportunity or a volunteer opportunity, a lot of them will jump on it. Depending on the organization, some of them have required service events. So I knew that National Honor Society had to do like 10 hours of community service every week, or not every week, every semester. So that's another motivation for these students to really commit to the process, to commit to the KAST. Disadvantages, though, are you are reliant on a third party, meaning these aren't necessarily your volunteers. These are sort of like mercenaries that you hire to, go to elementary schools. They might not be committed to KAST. They might be just committed to National Honor Society. They want to get their hours in, and they just want to leave. I'll tell you about ways to prevent that from happening. Word of mouth is probably the best way to recruit volunteers. You're just asking your friends to join the program. And if they're your close friends, a lot of them will join the program, especially if they're not seniors already, if they're not already super committed. They will take some time out of their schedule and join something cool that you're doing. The advantages are your team members already know each other, they already trust each other, and you already have a good working relationship. Otherwise, you wouldn't reach out to them. And it's really easy to quickly build a team. But when you're only using this method, you might end up with just your friend group running the organization. And we want diversity in the organization. So we don't really want just one group of friends doing everything. Also, it might get a little cliquey. What I mean is, if someone else outside of your friend group wants to join the organization, and everyone in the organization is already a very close knit, it might be hard to incorporate other people into the group, and this can prevent the club from expanding. Now, once I started, okay, so when I went to Northwest High School, I was the president of about six clubs. And basically every year I would set up a booth at the freshman orientation. I don't remember what it was actually called in high school, but we set up these booths in the gymnasium, and incoming freshmen would come in and they would walk around the gym and they would just check out what we have. I think this is one of the best ways to recruit, especially because you get to meet the people face to face. This is a lot more powerful than a morning announcement or a poster, but the posters and morning announcements are a great supplement to freshman orientation or just word of mouth. Now, the disadvantages are, again, like morning announcements and posters, most people will actually see it, won't respond. They might sign up, they will never show up. They might leave emails that you just can't read and you can't send them an email. What I would recommend actually is have a computer at your booth and have them type in the email. This way, you know it's going to be legible. I've had to deal with so many people's handwritings just completely illegible, and when there's an email like one letter off, it makes a big difference. So have a computer at your booth and have a couple of volunteers just walking around, introducing themselves, introducing the organization. This may not work for if you're just starting it out, but if you've already had it running for at least a couple of weeks, you might be able to set up a freshman orientation booth when it happens. Now, those are the couple of ways to find volunteers. School announcements, flyers, listservs, word of mouth, and freshman orientation. Those are the 5 best ways and the 5 ways I used when I was running it in high school. Now, once you find your volunteers, you're going to have to find a way to keep them. And the best way is really just to keep them engaged. Make sure they have work to do. If you have a bunch of volunteers and they're just sitting around, eventually they're not going to show up to meetings anymore. I think with KAST, it's not that difficult to keep the volunteers busy. When I was running KAST, actually, we didn't actually have lunch meetings. We would just, I would have like a meeting once every semester, and we would meet up right before the elementary school sessions to walk over to the elementary school. I would debrief everyone on the way while we're walking, and we would do our session and we would leave. And that was basically it. And most of the other meetings were just we would just stay in contact through email. So with KAST, you don't really need to worry about your volunteers wasting time. But if you have a couple of volunteers who are not, basically they're on your contacts list, but you're not assigning them to any roles or giving them any service opportunities, eventually they will not come, and they will just, once you do give them an opportunity, they just won't show up. Personal leadership and charisma is really important. You want to make each volunteer feel like they're valuable, feel like they contribute to the club, and you can do this by giving them small compliments or doing a little favor once in a while, and that goes a long way. Our former CEO, Jessica Yang, was an expert at doing this. She was just irreproachable. Like when she asks you to do something, you want to do it because she's normally just so nice. Let's see. You also want to give your volunteers a sense of ownership. This is very important because it motivates them to work harder and build a club. If it's their club, even if it's just for a resume, they want to build it as big as possible, make it as grand as possible because it looks better for them on their resume. Part of how you can do this is to give them leadership positions. When I was running my high school club, Obviously, we had president, that was me, but we had a couple of vice presidents, branch leaders, secretary, treasurer. You can basically create as many leadership positions as you want. The titles really don't cost you anything. One word of caution is you don't really want to give everybody a title. But it really doesn't hurt if you have like a club that's less than 10 people. It doesn't hurt to give most of the people a title. Again, with leadership, it's really, really important. You really want to develop your volunteers into future leaders because you want to leave a legacy after you leave the club. Once you graduate, who's going to be running KAST at your school? The way you develop volunteers into leaders is to delegate roles and responsibilities. Share your power. You don't really have to worry about people voting you out, especially for a club like KAST. Most of the time, you're going to be voted in for that year, and you serve for a year or two, you leave. You don't have to worry. I've never had to worry about people voting me out of office. Make sure you give volunteers credit whenever possible. You want to encourage leadership and expect the best of your people, and you want to push them to succeed. So again, we want to find good volunteers. We want to keep good volunteers, and we want to develop them into leaders. These three key points are what you need to create your volunteer base. I'll open the floor for questions. If you guys want to contact me, it's kevin.fan@kidsarescientists2.org. You can send me your questions there. And feel free to contact me as your Chief Strategy Officer. I'm happy to help. All right. I think I'm going to wrap it up now. And thank you guys for listening, and have a good day.